No one's going to knock on your door. Well, maybe, but that's very rare. No one's going to knock on the door and tell you that, oh, you're ready now. Come with me. That's not how it works. You have to know in your own brain that this is a business and I'm a real artist. And I really do go to work every day. If you have a full-time job, many artists start like that. I had a full-time, a part-time, and opened the studio all at the same time. Then got rid of the part-time, and then the scary, got rid of the full-time. And that took about, man, I worked 60, 70 hours a week between all that, right? All those jobs. I was just that determined to make it. I wanted it that bad. So my advice now, let's talk about anyone who's in an academic situation for art first. If you're going to school, it doesn't matter if you're at an art academy or, you know, your local community college, whatever it is, and you're pursuing a career in fine art, what I want you to understand is that there's not a magical date that you become a professional artist. You don't graduate the next day, I'm an artist. You don't have to wait. Get yourself prepared to do art shows. And if the art shows you can afford are the farmer's market, then that's what you do. You get yourself out there, you start making a living. So you're ready to go when you graduate. Not starting from scratch and not having a clue what to do. I have seen too many talented people get to graduation day and then realize they don't have the funds, they don't know where to turn. They get a job, you know, to survive, and then they never come back. So give yourself a break and start now. And by starting now, in your personal work, you've got to find your own voice. That's a fancy way of saying you got to have your own vision and your own style. You need to be working on that. I know that can be difficult. Well, it sounds so abstract to anyone. It doesn't matter if, you know, where you're starting from, but you'll find it, because when you find your passion and you follow your real story, whatever it is, people will come along with you. When you'll struggle if you're following somebody else's life and what you think sells and what their vision is. It just has to be authentic. And there is something, you know, there is absolutely something that you're passionate about and you want to do. When you're at university, it can be hard because there's assignments of, you know, paint this in the style of and this. But what that does for you, though, is teach you technique. That's really what that's about. So, you know, throw yourself into that, do all that. But in the long run, it's about it. I like to say this to students, you know, it's not always about you, but this is completely about you, you know, when you're finding your voice. So what I recommend is to get yourself out there. What I recommend, if you're a student, is in the summer to find those shows, but it's going to start really, it's a basic thing. And this is so readily available these days. You figure out who you are. You figure out, this is going to sound funny, but you figure out a tagline for what you do. You figure out 2 or 3 colors that are going to represent you. And then we start with, you still have to have a business card. Those days are not over. Business card, social media presence. There are now shows that you can't even apply for if you don't have a social media presence. So you got your business card, you've got your vision, you got your business card, you got your socials ready to go, and that you have a body of work of at least 20 pieces. The other thing, as you're starting to sell, you're going to need some little basics. I bought everything in thrift stores when I started. I found folding tables. I I even found some kind of bed rack, something that was part of a bed frame. And when you turned it over, it looked like a rack you could hang paintings on. So we spray painted it and I hung my artwork. I'm sure this is how I started. I couldn't afford one of those beautiful white tents when I started. So I bought one on sale at Walmart for $30. It was blue, it was dark, but I was there. I was part of the show. And then as I made money, what I did is I kept just enough to keep going, and every penny was reinvested into better materials, better booth, better. It just kept rolling along, and I didn't like go buy at the time, like a $2,000 TV. Instead, I invested in a white canopy, eventually pro panel walls, all the professional stuff. It just was a grind, a happy grind, and a grateful one. But I was just moving along and upgrading, and I still am. Shows change. I remember my first $5 show, my first $30 show, entry fee. The $100 one was a huge, huge for me. And now I'm in shows that the investment is $2,500. The formula is how much the materials cost, what is your cost to make it, meaning your rent, your lights, all of this, if you've got a studio, okay? All of that goes in. How much you want to make an hour. The painting took 6 hours. You want to make $100 an hour. I mean, this is all up to you. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is people do it by the square inch. Now, this gets complicated when paintings are miniatures, because you can't do it by the square inch when they're miniatures, or you'd be getting $10, which is fine if you're starting out and you want to do that. Okay, so the other way that you price is you're just starting. You get your first museum show. You get the first article written about you. I mean, there's levels, and you'll feel it in your career when the prices start to go up. Now, there was a young man a young artist on Facebook just yesterday talking about the situation where all the artists, all of us are in right now with the cancellation of shows. And what he was saying is you lower those prices, have respect for yourself. It's better off not to sell anything. I'm going to give you the other side of that story. There is an argument there. What he's saying. You're trying to keep a business open. It's a long-time client. They've been good to you forever. They're also hurting a little. Do you want to get $2,500 guaranteed or $3,500 painting sitting on the floor? This is for you to decide. It's not for me to decide. When you find yourself in that situation, I do know artists that have the same painting at every show for the last 5 years because they will not budge. And like I said, there's an argument for that about respect and what you're worth and all that. I would say, however, and I've had it happen where somebody came in and want 7 originals out of a booth. This is quite the story. 4 days, 12 hours a day. The show was. I sold $1,000 of different things, but compared to everybody else in the room, I was kicking it. I was just grateful. I'm going to get out, not in debt. Less than 3 minutes before the show, people are already packed up. I'm a stickler for the rules, though. We can talk about that too. And the producer comes running down and goes, "There's somebody that wants to buy a painting. Don't pack up." It's like, okay. So I didn't. 5 minutes later, he came in, he bought every major work that I had. Is this quite the story? Really, Did I give him a deal? Yeah. I gave him a deal. You want every painting in here? Right. So I took a couple thousand off. I could do that, or I could go home with all the paintings. When you come into my booth these days, it's $1 to $15,000, depending on what you want to buy. Everybody's welcome. And when I'm talking we're talking the bread and butter stuff, I'm talking about magnets, zipper pulls, coffee mugs, what else? Journals, blankets. That's the $1 stickers. I sell a lot of stickers. You can be a professional artist. You don't have to go to school. This sometimes gets very aggravating to somebody who's devoted 5, 6, 7 years to college to find out that on an artist resume, your education comes last. An artist resume does not look like a work resume. Well, this is a good point now to get into paperwork too. Artist statement, artist resume, those kind of things. So if you have no academic background, but you have the talent and the vision, let me tell you, galleries do not care. They don't care what your academic background is. Neither does the buyer at a art show. Where it matters is in your own development, or if you want to go into academia, you want to teach in a university, whatever that is, then it matters. And like I said, your own personal development, it matters. But in the selling of art, outside of some museums, it's not the first thing anyone will ever ask you. Am I telling you not to go to school? You better. No, I'm not. I'm telling you to go to school if you have the opportunity. But if you haven't, and you have your vision and you have the drive, you have just as good a chance as anybody to make it as a professional artist.